Yeah, so we're live on YouTube. I'll just start the webinar. We'll wait for a few people to start joining in, and then I'll start with the introduction. So we've started the webinar, and our participant group is rising. They're joining in. We'll just wait for the clock to hit 12, and then I'll start with the introduction. Okay, great. I'll start with the introduction now. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's live session. This session is brought to you by the team at Commercial Vehicle Forum, or as we are more popularly known, CVF. My name is Rohit Devan, and I'm the event director at CVF. While most of you are already aware, but for some of the new attendees who are joining us, just to give you a quick introduction, CVF is India's premium C-level commercial vehicle and road transport event. And for today's session, we have collaborated with ZF Wapco to bring you a session on ADAS. That is a technology that not only takes you towards a autonomous, connected, and electric future, but also provides peace of mind, protecting pedestrians and site workers. This is all the time while improving safety for drivers, passengers, and even other road users. Therefore, the session is aptly titled ADAS, the Safety Imperative. And in this session, you will obtain a completely holistic view, since we are joined by senior leaders from across the CV ecosystem, be it OEMs, solution providers, industry bodies, and also end user. So before we begin today's session, I wanted to take this time to especially thank our partner, Wapco India Limited, for supporting this session. Wapco India Limited is operating under the ZF Wapco brand and part of ZF Group Commercial Vehicle Control Systems Division. Wapco India Limited is India's market leader for advanced braking systems, conventional braking products, and related air assisted technologies and systems in India. It is powered by its vision for accident free driving and greener transportation solutions. ZF Wapco provides industry leading solutions in the autonomous, connected, and electric domains to the CV industry in India. Headquartered in Chennai, ZF Wapco has 5 manufacturing facilities and an advanced technology development center. They even have a vehicle testing facility and have a nationwide aftermarket distribution and services network. So now, coming to the agenda for the session, we will be having a panel discussion and we'll run few polls during the session. Then finally, we will close with an audience Q&A at the end. So before we start this session, just wanted to share a small ground rule. I would request all you attendees to direct any questions that you may have to the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. I'm asking you to do that because that helps us refer to your questions in a focused manner. You can also choose to upvote these questions because this helps us in addressing the most burning topics, the most popular topics. So please note once again, questions to be entered to the Q&A section at the bottom. So without further ado, I would like to now introduce you to our expert speaker group for today. Firstly, I would like to welcome Mr. Aniruddha Kulkarni, who is the Vice President and Head Commercial Vehicle Engineering at the Engineering Research Center, Tata Motors. He is responsible for the engineering functions at Pune, Jamshedpur, Lucknow, and Pantnagar, and has had a distinguished career of almost 3 decades in the auto sector, and especially when it comes to new product introductions. Next, we are joined by Mr. P. Kaniyappan, who was appointed Managing Director Wapco India Limited in July 2014, prior to which he led Wapco in the strategic growth market of India as whole-time director since 2009. This was following the company's acquisition of a majority stake in the brakes division of Sundaram Clayton Limited. Also, what is interesting to note is that Mr. Kaniyappan was ranked among the top 100 and best CEOs in 2016 by Business Today, which is the largest circulated business fortnightly magazine in India. Our next speaker for the session is Mr. Ram Ratan Singhi, who is the CEO of Gurugram-based logistics company Shaw Group. He is a promoter with over 2 decades of experience in the trucking and packaging space. And he is someone who I can truly say is passionate about smart and sustainability based solutions when it comes to transportation and packaging that are backed by data. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Philip Helmick. Mr. Helmick has been associated with ZF Wapco for the past 8 years and is currently working as Vice President, Vehicle Dynamics and Controls and Autonomous Driving at ZF Group Commercial Vehicle Control Systems Division. Prior to ZF Wapco, he worked for brands such as Johnson Controls, Philips, and NEC. We are honored to have next Mrs. Rashmi Urduvarshe, who is President of SAE India. Mrs. Urduvarshe has had a distinguished academic and professional career of almost 4 decades. She recently retired as Director ARAI in June 2020. In fact, having started her career as a trainee engineer, Mrs. Urduvarshe rose through the ranks to take on the coveted position of Director ARAI. And not only has she chaired various national, international bodies and provided strong leadership to Indian automotive R&D fraternity, but she is also an author and recipient of several awards. In fact, she was recently honored with Nari Shakti Puraskar Award in 2019 at the hands of Honorable President of India for her lifetime contributions towards development of automotive technology. Next, we have Mr. V. Ramanathan, who is Vice President OE Marketing and Sales at Wapco India. He has over 31 years of experience across multiple domains, including manufacturing, engineering, project management, marketing, and sales. He started his career with Maruti Suzuki India as a member of the manufacturing team, and post his 12-year stint with them, he joined Wapco as part of the manufacturing team, followed by a stint in project management before taking on his current role in sales and marketing. Our final panelist for the day is Mr. Rajesh Jain, who is looking after advanced technology development within product development at Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. He is closely looking at electric mobility, ADAS, and connected vehicle as part of this role. He is someone who has over 2 decades of experience, of which the past 15 years has come with the VECV team. And finally, we have our moderator for the session, Mr. Pawan Mulukutla, who is the Director of Electric Mobility Program under Sustainable Cities at World Resources Institute, India. Pawan is someone who has had almost 2 decades of experience in the urban mobility ecosystem. And prior to joining WRI India, he had worked at Bosch for close to 2 years, setting up their e-micromobility connected solution program. Over to you, Pawan, to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Rohit, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today with all of you. And I think it's a very, very interesting set of experts that we have. And the topic is more relevant than before. We all know how important safety, road safety is. And every minute there is a crash happening in our roads, and almost 16 people die every hour. And roughly we have more than 150,000 annual deaths related to just road safety related deaths. And it really becomes very, very important topic for us. And in fact, the last decade was the UN Decade of Action for Road Safety, and there have been many initiatives that have been taking place. And if you really look at road safety, it's always a collision involving either a pedestrian or a vehicle or two vehicles, but it involves a vehicle for sure most of the times. And ADAS in this context becomes even more relevant to all of us. And it really helps drivers really kind of judge how do you really actually give warning signs, help them really try to maneuver, and upfront maybe prevent collisions from happening or even crashes from taking place. In fact, a simple definition would be of the advanced driver assistance system is um, a number of safety functions which improve driver and passenger and pedestrian safety by reducing the severity and at the same time also the crashes involved. It can really warn drivers of potential dangers. It can even intervene based upon the automation level, if it is highly automated or if it is not highly automated, and can prevent crash. So we are really talking about how do we really improve the overall safety of our passengers, of drivers, of cargo, vehicles, all sorts of vehicles, and really bring down the fatality rate. And we all have heard about the Vision Zero also. Many cities in India also have adopted Vision Zero program where they're really talking about moving towards zero fatality and zero crashes. And of course, when we talk about ADAS, it uses really components like sensors, cameras, which really help to detect if there are any obstacles. And at times, it can take control of the vehicle also at different levels. There, of course, passive form of ADAS, there is active form of ADAS. So there's much more to this. So without further delaying, I would really say that let's hear from our experts in terms of this topic and really enlighten ourselves today with what is happening in this sector, where is India heading, and also learn from global learnings. So I would really actually start with Mrs. Rashmi. Um, Rashmi, my question to you is that, of course, I did talk about the importance of ADAS, but how do you think that ADAS can improve road safety and support India achieve the Vision Zero goal? So I really wanted to start with your thoughts and set the context for this panel discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Rashmi.
Yeah, thank you, Pawan, and good afternoon, everybody. Uh, Vision Zero is, in my view, a very, very ambitious and an important target for a country like India. We have done a lot in bringing in regulations, technologies on road, but much more is still required to be done. From that point of view, I think the commercial vehicle segment has a very great potential to come forward, absorb the technology, and save lives. We have to also keep in view that Vision Zero can only be achieved if we have a clear migration from the earlier focus on passive safety to now shifting to the active safety components, and much more can be achieved with this shift. Uh, the third angle, which Vision Zero will always have, is keeping driver and the road occupants at the center of every action that happens. Drivers are humans and they are bound to make mistakes. So, what can the technology do to overcome these mistakes, to enable the driver to perceive the roads much differently, much better, and then get the alerts, get the assistance, and then, of course, depending on the automation, overall control. So, from that point of view, I think commercial vehicle industry is now poised to be ready to absorb the technology to greater extent and contribute greatly to Vision Zero, because it's an important sector altogether when it comes to not just road safety but the number of accidents that happen because of the commercial vehicles.
Thank you, Rashmi. Mr. Kaniappan, let me move on to you and just understand your viewpoint. I think Rashmi spoke about Vision Zero and also she really touched upon commercial vehicle segment. I just wanted to hear what is the correlation with CVs related to Vision Zero and what are some of your thoughts around this?
Thank you, Pawan. No, the data shows most of the accidents takes place in India. Uh, okay, I understand 30% of the road accidents are actually contributed by the commercial vehicles, and many of the the causes for the accidents are, even though it is categorized as the driver error or the driver mistake or whatever, but in the real sense, it also due to the loss of control by the driver. Um, so we have to understand the fact that the conditions in which the drivers work in India, it's very difficult for them to keep all the time alert. For example, most accidents in India takes place in the early mornings when the drivers are actually either about to sleep or not as alert as they're supposed to be. So it's absolutely essential that we provide, some assistance, some support system, which actually helps them to recognize the either the vehicle or the environment in which they're driving, so that it can alert them either haptically or through a vibration or whatever, the other sound, etc., so that they can actually become alert. So the second is many times they'll not be able to see the foggy environment or the climatic conditions in which they're driving. It's very difficult for them to see and be alert all the time. So, and then understand what is on the other side. Again, they are very much, they need a support. They need a support, a driver assistance. A system will actually very much help them to avoid a potential accident. There's also, in India, most of the vehicles, commercial vehicles, are overloaded. So when the overloaded vehicles are driven, the stability of the vehicles are actually always under, it's not stable. Today we have electronic stability control. It itself is an assistance system which on a real-time monitors the stability of the truck and then takes over once the driver loses control. In a way, it's something like a hand of God. Like this, there are many systems today has come which actually will help the drivers. It will support the drivers to keep the vehicle in a safer, drive the vehicle in a safer manner. Also, the improve the stability of the whole vehicle itself, the whole ecosystem itself, much more safer. So that's the role I think ADAS plays. ADAS is more relevant for India than any other country because of the ecosystem in which we are living, we are driving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaniyappan. I really like the analogy of God's hand. That's quite interesting when we are talking about how these systems are helpful. So before we move on to understand the Indian market better, I would request Philip. I understand you have tremendous experience and understanding of the international market. Are there parallels that can be drawn, or any examples or case studies that India can learn from?
Yeah, I think there is a lot to learn, as some regions of the world have already started to implement this ADAS system via legal requirement. So in Europe, for example, every truck on the road who is newly registered since 10 years has to have a forward collision warning and a lane departure warning. And with this, in Germany, for example, the accident number is reduced for the heavy-duty market 50% in the last 10 years. So it's really a significant improvement. And because of this success, the European Union has decided to increase even the legal requirement also for subjection, because this is now, after the introduction of the forward collision warning, the next problem is basically if a truck turns to the right side. If you have the traffic right side, if you are on the left side, then for sure it's the other side. But the driver will not be able to see if there is a pedestrian or a bicycle on the sign, it moves to the right. And that's basically one of the accidents what we see. And that's a reason to introduce also their legislation. And this will be active in 23. But also when you have non-regulated market like US, we see the big advantage of this total cost of ownership as well, for sure, aside the personal damage or the protection of people. The fleets are so convinced that they save in the total cost of ownership after implementing the forward collision warning, that up to 50% of the US market on their own have introduced this feature. So to avoid that
Pawan, I think Philip's connection is a bit patchy. If we can move on, maybe Philip, when joins, we can take his.
Yeah, while we get Philip back on the call, Philip, can you hear us? It doesn't look like.
I
I have
can hear you. Sorry, is my connection so bad?
now it's better. We can hear you now. Yeah, please go ahead and complete your statement. Yeah.
Okay. Till which section could you listen to Europe or US?
US, you said
Yes.
50% forward collision, 50% vehicles went ahead and adopted the system.
Yes. So that was basically because the US were basically experienced, they have a lot of untrained drivers, and they see big potential that they reduce the number of accidents with helping an introduction of this system. And as well, the downtime of the truck is reduced, and for them, it's really a huge improvement. And the last one in China, we have seen that now there is a regulation for 20% of all Chinese trucks who are under the regulation for forward collision warning as well for lane departure warning. They even increased the legislation to as well detect pedestrian in front of the truck. So they are the first one to have a legal requirement for this.
Thank you. Quite fascinating statistics that you have shared in terms of the impact that it can have in the segment. Moving on to Mr. Kulkarni, I have two questions for you actually. That what is the level of, based on what I heard from Philip and others, what do you think is the level of technology actually needed in India? And do we really need any legal backing? Because we heard a case of Germany where it's legally mandated. In US, we realize it's not mandated. What do you think will work for Indian systems?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pawan. And I will try to answer this in 2 or 3 parts. First, I think what Mr. Philip has mentioned about the commercialization of this ADAS technology, which has happened globally, and it has mainly because of, say, passenger and a pedestrian safety. And there, I personally see that the data which also shows that a double-digit CAGR growth is expected by 2030 globally. And similarly, I think it is even in, say, a western part of the world, or say some of the advanced countries in Asia or in Europe, it is because of the safety mandate or increasing demand for the semi-autonomous driving conditions and everything. When we come to, say, India's situations are slightly different in a sense. Whether we need ADAS, yes, definitely we need ADAS, and I tend to agree with what Mr. Kaniappan said, that India is a more relevant country where we can push for the implementation part of this. But what is important for India from a ADAS point of view is in a commercial vehicle, the TCO is very important feature. And we have to see how this ADAS brings the TCO part of the compliances and TCO part of enhancement, which the Indian drivers will enjoy or Indian fleet operators will enjoy coming out of this. The second part, which is important, is that the companies, the OEMs, are now working towards the pro-driver kind of approaches. So that brings the safety part of that, and that safety for the drivers for a long haul journeys is a paramount importance to in the Indian context. And India is also working towards a forum which is called as International Harmonization Group, who is also preparing a long-term roadmap from this ADAS journey point of view, and also from a safety features which can work. The solutioning for the western part of the world is different, and solutioning for India will be different. And there we have to work like as a OEM or a system suppliers like a ZF and WAPCO. We have to come together and we have to prepare a solution or recipe which is more suitable for India. And yes, it is required, and support is required from both OEM, system supplier, and also from a regulation agencies who are going to frame this future journey for the ADAS. This is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite interesting. There's also a question if you would want to respond in the chat on elaboration on the TCO part of it. Mr. Singhi, I have a question for you. Do you think that suppliers and OEMs can partner for faster adoption for us in India? Mr. Singhi, yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, Pawan. So essentially, what we see in India, that India is, if I talk of the commercial vehicle segment, we have 5 or 6 major players. And when it comes to any regulatory, push from the government to increase the safety on roads, I can say the record of Indian OEMs is not really great. Let's be very honest and upfront about it. And I think WEPCO team will also be facing this issue, similar to what, when government wanted that all the truck cabins in India should be OEM fitted, crash tested cabins. This was the mandate that was laid out by the Ministry of Road Transportation and Highways. And what you saw was a pushback from OEMs, where 3 of the OEMs straight away said, no, we want to continue with the cowl chassis. If you continue with a cowl chassis, no matter how much safety, you want to use ADAS, you want to use all of these high-tech solutions, it's not implementable. And a lot of our trucks today still are cowl chassis trucks. So the first thing is for the OEMs to get their house in order when it comes to driver safety. Merely, making campaigns out of driver safety will not improve driver safety. You have to believe that your first line of defense is your cabin. If you have the best camera in the world, a best brake in the world, but if your cabin is not crash tested, believe me, it can't protect the driver. That's the number one. After that, once we have achieved this particular, I would say kind of standardization, because globally this is how things are, then we go to the next step, which is what Mr. Philip just mentioned. Just one step we need to take, and that is forward collision warning. We cannot go ahead with the entire ADAS systems overnight. We have tried it. We have tested it with Mobileye. We have tested it with high-tech robotic systems. It doesn't work. I can in the later part of our conversation, I can tell you, multiple reasons why it doesn't work. But the first question about OEMs and the ADAS implementers coming together, the first thing is to get our cabins crash tested. Only after that we can go to this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Singhi. Can I get quick response from Mr. Kaniyappan and Mr. Kulkarni on this, on what Mr. Singhi was mentioning?
Okay, so I tried to answer. So one is about the safety part, which Mr. Singhi brought onto this, and our current regulations, our safety and our roadworthiness certification is calling for a lot of tests even on the cabin side. And now truck body code 1 and truck body code 2, thanks to Mr. Rashmi, who is also present here as a ex-area director, those mandates are testing even at a cowl level vehicles, where you have to declare which bodies you are going to build. You have to also comply to the internal space requirement and internal reach requirement, and also you have to carry out roof test, front pendulum test, also on a cowl vehicle which are going on to this. So I fully agree that yes, it is a regulatory kind of approach which we have to follow, but also I think we have to also regulate the market with those such approaches. This is important. And as Mr. Singhi was mentioning, what are the features which we have to offer? Definitely, I think we have to follow a good trajectory in a step-by-step manner. We have to applicate various features in the ADAS. And as I see, there could be say more than say 25 plus kind of feature where the global economy is offering, but there are like a 20 odd features which are there, which are more relevant for India. And those relevant for India with India side of solutioning is a responsibility of various stakeholders in the system, which is definitely going to improve, say, safety perspective of the vehicle, and also it is going to affect the, it is going to reduce the accidents on the way, on the roads and everything. And whether it is like only FCW sufficient, or whether you require a lane departure warning, or whether ESC is a mandated. So there are many different angles to that. And Indian commercial vehicle is not only like a trucks. It has like a small commercial. It is like a intermediate commercial. They have buses. They have a heavy commercial range, and there are many micro segments. The solutioning for each and every segment will be slightly different, but definitely we have to work on a modularization concept. But the journey has to be toward the safer India and safer vehicles. And I fully agree with Mr. Singhi on such approaches.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Any quick response, Mr. Kanya?
Yeah, thank you. No, I also agree with Mr. Singhi, particularly when he made a mention that we should start with forward collision warning. Yeah, that's the right path, because we are working with OEMs like Tata Motors and taking the same path. I also believe India should go for the electronic stability control also, because, as I said, in a very critical situations, when the driver is not able to control the vehicle because of unstable overloading, etc., we have a technology which actually comes to him, as I said, as like a hand of God in those situations and saves him. So we should, but in that respect, government has already announced ESC regulation from, I think, April 2023 for the bus segment, M3 buses. So some roadmap is actually evolving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kanya. Moving on to Mr. Rajesh. So we, and I just want to see if you are okay with this question. How do we incorporate the TCO discussions with customers? So I think it has been talked about a lot. Mr. Kulkarni also touched upon that to reflect better ROI. How do we really talk about the TCO? Do you have any experience, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Good afternoon to all, first of all. Like TCO, total cost of ownership, somebody asked in the chat also, is becoming a very important. Nowadays, what is happening with BS6 implementation and other regulatory part, vehicle cost is increasing it. And any accident happening or like that, there is a subsequent impact on the repair cost also. So repair cost, and not only the breakdown time is also increasing. So TCO aspect is like we have to incorporate these aspects and these things in the new paradigm of total TCO concept, where we are discussing it, of the repair cost, maintenance cost, and how the downtime is there. So that's where the TCO becomes important. And when we compare over a large fleet, sometimes what happens in a one or two truck, single truck, it may not give the impact. But when we consider over a large fleet, then on an average basis, TCO definitely we will see ADAS will have a positive edge, and it can be a recoverable cost over a large fleet. And secondly, to prove the TCO, we have to have some, like evidences and prove out. And one aspect maybe like the connected vehicle now it is becoming an important aspect. So this ADAS system has to be also connected with the connected vehicles, so that we can over a period, we can bring out the facts and figures, what has happened, what were the causes of accidents, how it has been avoidable. So that manner, if we take its overall basis on that, then definitely TCO will becomes for the ADAS system a positive edge and gives advantage, and people or transport agencies will consider that.
Thank you, Rajesh. Yeah. Moving on, Mr. Ramnath, do you want to share any thoughts around this on the TCO part? Share your experience around that. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. The TCO, when we are talking about TCO, the ADAS system provides both tangible and intangible benefits. The most important intangible benefits is it saves the life of the driver, pedestrian, and passengers in case of a bus. These are all very, these cannot be valued. On the question of tangible benefits, we have to look at for example, we have done a survey of more than the fleets having more than 100 vehicles. Typically, these fleets have 1 to 2% of their vehicles down with accidents at any point of time. So these accidents are of various natures, and when the fleets take typically 2 weeks to 8 weeks to restore these vehicles. So the opportunity lost in sales is immense in these vehicles. And the second one is like Mr. Rajesh Jain mentioned, the repair costs and the insurance costs associated with an accident is also very high. And in case you are losing a trained driver, that is also which can put back the it can have a business implications. And the fourth important aspect is there is also a between a trained driver and untrained driver. ADAS can support a semi-trained, semi-skilled drivers also. Because today in the market the salary difference between a trained driver and a semi-skilled driver is huge, and these are all some of the factors which can support the TCO discussion. If you take all the opportunity costs and other things, you will be ending up with typically a payback of a year or 1.5 years. It can easily pay back. The ADAS technology can pay back. Typically in 3 fleets, we are seeing the application of ADAS is very important. One is the e-commerce fleets, which are operating almost around the clock, more than 20 hours in a day. For them, keeping the service levels and delivery commitments are very important, and any downtime in accidents will become very business critical. The second type of fleet is the hazardous goods carrier. These are all carrying the chemicals and other oils and other things. Any minor accidents can cause very widespread damage, and so all the global fleets are adapting ADAS, and as Mrs. Rashmi mentioned, the zero accident vision. And the third one is the long distance intercity buses. So as India's road infrastructure is improving, so the average speeds are increasing, and these buses, especially the private bus fleets, are operating almost around the clock. And so they carry a large number of passengers. So ADAS technology can provide to be a very valuable to these type of fleets. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think kind of nicely summed up where it will really make sense in terms of whether it's e-commerce, hazardous vehicles, and of course, long distance travel. I think those are the 3 we were talking about. We'll take a quick poll round, Rohit.
Sure. Which poll would you like me to introduce?
Any question you want, you can pull out anyone. Yeah. So requesting all audience to please vote. Must have popped up on your system.
Yeah, Pawan, if you can just maybe word it out, mouth it out once, and then we can.
Yeah. Do you think ADAS system will help bring down the crashes and road fatalities in India? There are 3 options. Definitely. It will create a small change. No. So requesting all of you to please respond by just clicking on whichever option you feel is reasonable.
Thanks so much, Pawan. We can move on to the question.
Pawan, Mr. Pawan, if you allow, I also wanted to add to what Mr. Ramanathan has mentioned into the previous question as far the TCO is concerned, and I have a slightly different angle to that also from ROI point of view. So definitely a digital validation is showing that we are able to get like a 10 to 15% TCO enhancement when you have a platooning on highways, or when you have like a highway platooning and a selected road platooning, you are able to get like a 15 to 20% kind of a thing. And a full autonomous vehicle can give you about say 30 to 45% improvement in the TCO. This is like a very tall level digital validation data is showing. And it is toward not only from a TCO point of view, but industries are also moving toward from a safety enhancement of the vehicle and accident prevention. But when you talk about the India, these figures will slightly change because of say Indian traffics are different, road conditions are different, and the technologies are different. But the importance as far as the ROI is concerned, it is very, very important from an Indian commercial vehicle industry point of view. And here, the role of a system integrators like a ZF and WAPCO or Porsches of the world, they come into picture where they are a development time, a shortening of development time, and India-specific localization, India-specific component development, and a system cost will encourage a system integration into the vehicle, and people or the users will appreciate the benefit out of that. So ROI also will depend on to this, and definitely the awareness in the system towards say accident prevention, towards giving say a better vehicle to the drivers, those will also parallelly help to improve and to create awareness towards the ROI, like a ROI kind of a terminology which is broadly used onto the system. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni, for adding that perspective. Rohit, can you quickly look at the results of the poll? Yeah, so 82% of the respondents say that ADAS systems will help bring down the crashes and fatalities in India. And of course, 16% say it will create only a small change, and 2% believe that no, it's not going to have any impact. So with that, we will move on to the next set of questions. So Philip, moving on to with you, I think Mr. Ramanathan also touched about on this little bit, that how can ADAS play in creating a more enabling environment or stress-free for drivers and attracting or retaining skilled drivers. So have you seen in, I wanted to hear your thoughts, like how does it really help in skilling drivers and how about it helps in retaining the drivers themselves?
Sorry, I did acoustically not get the question completely. It was related to me?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so my question is, how can the ADAS system play a more enabling environment for creating stress-free driving and attracting and retaining skilled drivers? What do you see the role in actually helping drivers and helping them, and also for companies to retain the drivers? That's the question.
Yeah, in the end, the forward, I mean, if you excellence, and I take now the example what you said for going on a high-speed road, then basically the driver has to get off. If you have a forward-facing warning, you get a kind of warning, and you know that drivers, when you drive for 1 hour, 2 hours, they're getting that you are not concentrating every second. And there is basically, if there is a car on the street, if there is a stopped vehicle in front of us, this is basically as well the distance to the upfront vehicle. This is what you can align with the ADAS system, that it's in a kind of automatic stage. It's in the first step, you will just make a warning. So you get a kind of alert signal acoustically or a haptic on the steering wheel. That's basically the option number one. Option two is that it's automatically connected to the braking, basically reduce the speed of the vehicle. This is depending on the installation. If you want to come to a full stop or you just start to activate the brake so that you the driver definitely is realizing that there is something in front, and then he can actively pull the steering wheel as well to the side, or the truck completely hits the brake. And the third one is a convenient feature which you know from Pesca, and there basically you have the possibility that you click on a distance, let's say 50 meters, which is the safety, or 100 meters, depends on the speed. You have always automatically, you keep the distance to the front vehicle. So that's basically the three cases where you can help the driver and in different circumstances to avoid accidents.
Thank you, Philip. Anything you want to add, Mr. Kulkarni or Mr. Singhi?
Okay. I will try to add my perspective onto this. So very broadly, when we see the accidents on the road, 90% of the accidents are in the commercial vehicles are because of, say, a driver, where the driver role comes to picture. And if you try to see the say the various factors behind that, it shows like a drowsy driving, a distraction, some sort of a negligence in the system, or a tiredness, or a say long haul kind of a route, which is not stopped in Indian context of things. We are also seen a study which shows that we could have avoided the accident had the driver received the alert in the system just 1.5 seconds before the accident. So that itself is a very, very important element into the ADAS journey and everything. And when you applicate the ADAS, it is definitely going to improve the safety point of view and onto this. A study also shows that a 38% of the accident can be avoided alone by, say, our emergency braking or AEBS functionality, which we say. So that it is going to improve vehicle safety definitely. And when we see there are four factors into which the entire ADAS system work, and I'm talking purely from a say Indian context point of view again here. So whether it's a DMA drivers monitoring system is a must. Yes, it is a must. How we are going to integrate it, that is also a journey which we are going to discuss. But when we say what broadly, there are the perception features, there are like a cruise features in the ADAS, there are safety features, and then there are parking features. What are like a perception features? Like it's a blind spot detection, or turn assist, automotive night vision, traffic signal recognitions. Or when we talk about the cruise kind of features, it is like adaptive cruise controls, highway assist, platooning kind of a thing. Or safety feature which are very relevant for India point of view, like a forward collision warning, ESC which we discussed, or AEBS, and a lane keep assist. While I think there is intelligent parking which is coming as a fourth part of this, all those features are very, very relevant from an India perspective. The journey has to be not altogether, but journey will be always in the step. And I think India is progressing very well. And some of the OEMs like us are progressing in a very positive direction with a system supply like this. And here I personally feel that it is a driver-centric product development, which is becoming very, very important in the coming years. Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Mr. Singhi, you want to respond to this?
Yeah, I mean, from the list of features which Mr. Kulkarni just mentioned, I think he forgot to one very Indian context feature. We need a cow collision prevention system. You know, for everything, I have taken a journey with driver on the road, sitting by his side for 12 hours. I can tell you one thing. It is the most impossible job that a driver or any human can do, the way our roads are, designed. All the roads have all sorts of traffic, from cyclist to motorcyclist coming all of a sudden from nowhere without helmet, to all sorts of animals on the road, to all sorts of people crossing the road knowing that a truck is just approaching you. They will run in front of your truck as if they are in some kind of racing with the truck. And then you have all sorts of cars which will come all of a sudden and take a turn in front of you and then change the lane. I mean, whatever is humanly possible for a driver to react to it, you will find that we, as in, it's impossible. I personally feel our accident numbers are little less than what they could have been looking at the scenario, is purely because of luck factor. Otherwise, there is no other way to explain. And that's why when I kind of listen to these people from WebCo about ADAS systems, I want to ask them, have you tested this in Indian conditions? It's one thing to be successful in Europe, in US, in other, even China is much better in this regard compared to India. Have they tested it in India? That's my question to the WebCo team.
Sure. I'll let them, Mr. Kanyapan, you want to respond? Yeah, please go ahead.
No, we have been testing this in India more than 5 years with Tata Motors. We have clocked probably lakhs of kilometers here. And these systems work here. Initially, we had a lot of doubt whether the lane markings, whether it will be detected, etc. But it works. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Singhi, if I can add to your one point, say very broadly, when you see that like a front side, there are 5 zones, rear side-wise, there are three zones, and the rear side, there are again 3 zones. And the solutioning for the western part of the world and the solutioning for the Indian part of the world is going to be different. And there, the algorithms development, identification, and artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we are going to incorporate in the sensors, are very, very important from India. And you have to capture various use cases to make this technology more relevant for India. And definitely, it is not a journey of say like a 4 months, 5 months, 6 months like this. You have to capture various road terrains, various use cases, and as you rightly said, one of the use cases also will be a cow which will come in between, or say a school boy will come in between suddenly in the intra kind of a traffic, or when you are moving in the interstate traffics are slightly different and highways are different. Yes, the use cases are very, very important, and how we as the engineering fraternity is able to tackle those use cases and develop our own algorithm is the key in my understanding. Definitely.
Yeah, just to add, I fully agree with Mr. Kulkarni, because in the commercial vehicle it is more regional specific solutions. We don't bring what is available in Europe to India and then apply. Both system providers like us and OEMs like Tata Motors, we develop solutions for India market, of course taking support from the global system that is available, that's available, and bring it to the largely at the price points this market can accept. Otherwise, these products will not sell here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Rajesh, this question is for you, and then if any other panelist also wants to respond. That can ADAS adoption directly impact insurance premium? And how can we restructure premium for safer vehicles? So I just want to understand if you have any perspective around that.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier also, nowadays the vehicle technology is becoming very complex and also costly. So any accident leading to a breakdown will also increase the repair cost and also cost of the insurance company. So definitely this ADAS system fitted vehicles indirect method can reduce the insurance premium because the claim settlement or the other property damage will be less. So, but this requires a lot of data and facts, because if you go to the insurance company today environment and we say like, okay, a vehicle is fitted with the ADAS system, you provide discount. They will say already I'm going without system anyway, I'm providing the discount. So this is the situation today in a competitive, like in India, customers look for a lot of, value out of money. So this also has to be with data driven, lot of data to be collected, demonstrated how ADAS system has helped. And definitely time will come when insurance companies will realize it has helped in reducing accident and the repair cost and the insurance claim cost.
Thank you, Rajesh. Anyone wants to add anything onto this insurance bit of it, or I could move to the next question? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Singh.
Yeah, I think Mr. I just forgot the name of the gentleman.
Rajesh.
But he was right in mentioning. Rajesh mentioned correctly that insurance companies already give you quite a good chunk of discount when we go as a OEM, as a fleet operator to take our insurance policies. Having said that, I think it is on part of companies which are interested to introduce this ADAS systems to have a better communication with insurance companies who are very active in the commercial vehicle market, and to give them a perspective that even an additional 2 or 3% based on implementation of ADAS could become a game changer, could become like that, probable, thing to start. It's like you can just strike out a conversation, and that 2-3% could become the initial point where you would then start looking and talking about implementing ADAS systems into their fleets. So this would be, we should not rule out that possibility at this point in time that insurance might not be interested. I think they need to be, data will come over a period of time, but the 2 to 3% can be initiated right away.
Okay, so Mr. Pawan, from a vehicle perspective, when we see, and the data shows that when the vehicle is equipped with say our forward collision warning system, the vehicle get 20% less damages. Or when you have like a system which is like a lane departure warning, or also on some of the say side 360-degree kind of a camera system which is installed on the vehicle, it is causing almost like a 25% less damage to the vehicle. So that itself shows that the vehicle becomes slightly like a less prone to the damages with the ADAS system, and that may lead to a favorable kind of a situation for the reduction into the premiums from those point of view. This is a very broad level statement, but definitely it has a many commercial angles to that, not only the safety part of that. So it is a broad topic, and I think may not be only related to the ADAS. This is what I wanted to highlight.
Fair enough.
Just want to add one thing, that what also can work is the safety rating that perhaps as a voluntary basis vehicle manufacturers can declare at this moment, create an awareness in the user's mind, and then link it later on with the insurance and such.
Yeah, and just to add from a global perspective, what we have seen is that in US and China, the insurance is significantly reduced for the fleets if they have the system implemented. So they have enough statistic already to proven that there is significant benefit for the insurance. In Europe, as it is mandatory for everyone, there is no choice anyhow. So you have all vehicles, but in US and China, we see that there is a need from the fleet to introduce this because they want to get the premium action from the insurance to get.
Thank you, Philip. Philip, in fact, my next question is to you. That we are talking about implementation. So, just wanted to understand what were some of the biggest roadblocks for the adoption of ADAS in the European market, or from any other global countries?
Yeah, so basically it's the same, it was the same what we have right now with one difference. So there is the society say, does it really help? Is it a feature? Is it something? And like the hesitation, is it really saving costs? Other fleets convinced. There is also the acceptance driver, because all of a sudden you are not controlling any longer the vehicle. There is someone or something who is taking control. So it was also for this trucker who is a really experienced driver. They said, I don't need it. This is bullshit. I don't have these systems. I am much better than a system. Or you get annoyed by a wrong alert. So that was basically all the things what we discussed in the last hour. This was
semiconductor device.
Balaji, can you?
Is the connection still there? I got some disturbance.
It is there, yeah.
Okay. So then this was basically the environmental, and all these things were from the people who were starting to have an introduction. The other is the technology, and we also raised this, the technology. And the good thing here is that we are now 10 years ahead in the rest of the industry. So we have components which are really solid coming from the huge PESCAR market. Basically have developed this technology, and for them in standardization, it's already a commodity. We have brought this into the commercial vehicle, and there is a lot of effort and huge investments what we have taken inside the company. So you're talking here several million of 100 millions of euros or dollars, which you have to invest in this technology to get it to a certain stability that is working. And now, by introducing and coming in stage or this time into India, we have a much better groundwork and we have a better capability. So we have to make a good compromise between the available components and technology from the global market. And as rightly said, now we have to make the application work and to make the use case for India, as this is a very specific environment, and driving on roads in India is completely different than in other areas of the world. So we have to adjust the system, as said before, that we need the use cases, we need the implementation, and we have to do it step by step. So go first, I mean, if you go to Mumbai or Delhi or Chennai today, inside the city, this is not the system where we want to start with, because this is from a complexity point, maybe in 5 years we are capable to manage this. But on a normal road, that's basically on an intersection, this is where we are definitely capable and where we have the experience to bring the system in. And this is where we have to have two aspects. So one is the technology, the awareness, and then the society who's willing to do it, and then for sure the fleet who understands the total cost of ownership, that this is really helping them. So these are the three aspects where we have to, and as was said, I like this word, it's a journey. So we have to do it step by step, and we have to start with the biggest bang for the buck. So really with something which has success in one area, and then bring it into others and not bring it everywhere, because then the people will be frustrated.
Thank you, Philip. I think that's quite sums up well. We talked about technology awareness, the society, and the fleet. So my question now turning to folks here in India, Mr. Ramanathan, I'll start with you. That how do we really take this forward in India?
Yeah,
what are the requirements?
As Philip mentioned, the awareness and acceptance of the drivers and fleets in India is very critical. For that, when we say ADAS, it's a generic term, covers almost 25 different technologies. Some are meant for highway usage, some are meant for within the city usage, some are meant for protecting the pedestrians, some are meant for high-speed driving. So we have to create the awareness. Basically, these technologies are proven and user-friendly. And the making the fleets and drivers aware about the various technology and applications, and basically and creating it is only helping the drivers. It's not a substitute for a driver. So that awareness should be there. The second one is creating a common standard, performance standard, so that what to expect from an ADAS system should be common and from to all the OEMs as well as the users. And the third one is, as we have seen in many of the cases in India, the regulation push is also very important to adapt it very fast into the market.
Thank you, Mr. Ramanathan. Mr. Rashmi, would you like to add something on how we can take this forward in India?
Yes, there are lots of things which can create a setback. We should know how to actually collect the data on failure cases. We should also be matured enough as a society, I'm talking about as a society, to be able to handle the technology that can come with step-by-step introduction of technologies, get the market ready to handle it, and then move on in a stepped manner. The another aspect is what we should be looking at is don't rush to mandate things. I think we in the enthusiasm we try to depend too much on regulations. We should avoid that. We should let the market develop to be ready with absorption of these things, and also pay attention to the changing infrastructure. Develop the use cases, as Mr. Anirudh mentioned earlier, collect the data, empower the developers to use that data on a national basis to enable the technology to mature. These are the ways.
Thank you. Anything, Mr. Kulkarni or Mr. Rajesh, you want to add?
I would like to say first step as a training and awareness is also an important aspect to driver and others. Rather simply selling now vehicle is fitted with ADAS system and you are safe, it may not work. So we have to provide a training and awareness how this ADAS system is going to help and all. I would like to give an example. We were doing trials with the driver drowsiness system, fitted the system in the vehicle and the vehicle was running. After some time, so driver was getting irritated with the beeping sound and all those things, and he tried all so that the sound do not come. But later on, when we showed him the videos and explained him what was his situation and then what condition this beeping sound was coming, so then he realized the importance of that. Suppose some more severe condition would happen, then it could have been very, very critical. So this training and awareness is a very, very important aspect so that everybody understands, driver also understands how a ADAS system is going to help him and to avoid the critical situations. And secondly, also OEM and suppliers both also we have to work together to find some frugal approach innovation so that the cost becomes low overall and becomes attractive to the fleet owners or the customers so that they won't feel like TCO will be questioned or why initial cost is so high. These two, and third is also the standardization, as Mr. Ramanathan said, will also help in standardization will bring also the scale, and scale will again reduce the cost. So these two, three are the important aspect which can drive implementation in India. That's what.
Thank you, Rajesh. Mr. Kulkarni, you want to add?
I will only add one different point, and that could be I personally see as a hurdle right now for the faster implementation in India. So if we do a cost and a value laddering for this ADAS as a feature, ADAS as a feature of ADAS is a group of features, if we say, then it may not fit the business case in India at this point of time. What is important is that we are able to justify the TCO which is coming out of this. We try to impress upon the safety part of the drivers and fleet owners who are going to use this vehicle. And a third part, which is very, very important, is like a harmonization of the requirements. And there, harmonization requirement is not only from a vehicle perspective, but also from a use cases perspective. And those studies, if we are able to combine it together, probably the overall development cost and a faster introduction of limited features will be then enforced in the system slowly. And that will lead to the awareness in the system, which will help for the introduction into the commercial vehicle segment. This is what I feel. But to be honest, at this point of time, it will not fetch a value which customer will perceive it at this point of time. But OEMs have to really push it, and we are on that path. I can mention that.
That's good to hear that you are on the track and are pushing this. We'll take a second question for the poll, Rohit, now. So you can pull up any question that you want. So should we wait for the regulation or offer ADAS as a value-added option to customers before the regulation? And your options are wait for the regulation or offer ADAS as a value-added option to customers before the regulation. And the third option is can't say. So requesting everyone must have popped up on your screen. If you can really go ahead and respond, that would be helpful. Please submit your response. So Rohit, I'll just take one more question before we pull out the results of the poll. But moving on, Mr. Kaniappan, I think we have heard a lot about, and I think this question is for all the panelists, that, so I'm just blending two questions. One is what, following up on the poll question also, that what needs to be done to encourage faster adoption of ADAS in India? But more so, what role does actually this whole engagement with industry, government, and associations play? So would you want to share any thoughts around that, Mr. Kaniappan?
Yeah. No, there are two aspects to the question. The first one, you are saying, do we wait for regulation or go with adoption earlier? But as the madam also said, and some of the panelists also said, I strongly believe that we should actually make the people experience and feel and see the benefit that is arising out of these technologies. And also these technologies should be adapted and used in these conditions to check whether it really delivers. So that's a path we should take. So once there's a common understanding, and then automatically I think regulations, because normally safety technologies come through regulations, because if you have to really make it as a major movement. But prior to that, we definitely have to applicate, understand, experience, etc. That's the way I suggest. To your second question, I want to go back to the starting point of the discussion when the madam said about the Vision Zero. It's a larger topic as a whole. May not, the total stakeholders of the ecosystem, everybody together. We need to really take a serious view of this Vision Zero, because it's a completely different level of thinking, where you don't value the life of people with the benefits that you will get economically. So it's a different dimension, and we have already got enough evidence of countries like Sweden and others who took that path. There's a significant improvement they have achieved, but we have to create a national, I would say, alignment with all the stakeholders, and then decide on that. Maybe we have to adopt this. I understand government of Haryana has taken the early lead in 2017, and they have adapted to, and a lot of work has been done in the area of transport systems, the various regulations, etc. So all of us have a role to play. First, we need to come to a common understanding that are we adapting to this? Are we serious about reducing the road accidents? I believe the government is doing a lot of work in the last recent times. Their government is very serious about it. A lot of the minister himself is, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, is very, very passionate and driving a lot of things. I think they are doing their bit. But both, from industry side, from providers like us, we need to come with the technologies that is more suitable for this, something that will really pass the test of the TCO, etc. Of course, OEMs, and it's a giant. Together, we need to really come together. So it's I think it starts from the commitment to the vision. We need to create a consensus or a aligned view at a national level. That's what I think.
Thank you, Mr. Kaneki. Ms. Rashmi, I'll move on to you. What roles do you see, different players coming together to really make this happen in India?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's a need for generating data. Generation of data bank can be the role of various research organizations, various consortiums can emerge out using India. Had a little bit of discussion about regulations. I think while I have a different view of regulations, I firmly believe that the standards development should take place earlier, so that everybody knows what are we talking about. There is a question which I was trying to answer about the environment in which these LiDARs and other things, sensors will have to operate. So there is a need for standardizing the operating conditions. There is a need for standardizing the use cases, etc. So that work should begin. We should also analyze and create a knowledge in learning from the failure cases. What works elsewhere may not work here. So create our own data and our products. And then, of course, the skilling and awareness I do endorse. And there is a role which SAE can play. And that is, in fact, one of our focus areas for skilling at all levels, not just drivers, but also for the development and so many other areas.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to add before we move on to Q&A from the audience? Mr. Kulkarni, Mr. Singhi.
Rajesh Jain here. Maybe like, some movement should be started considering all stakeholders. Like, for example, global warming or pollution. People always, everybody talks in the government policies like that for the Paris Declaration and all. And accordingly, government is working for renewable energy, reducing pollution, bringing in BA66 norms and all those things. Similar movement has to be started for the road safety and reducing the accidents so that all stakeholders, come very fast and standardization, localization, everything starts taking place and there will be a movement out of that.
Interesting idea on the. Yeah, Mr. Kulkarni.
I think I would agree with what Ms. Rashmi mentioned about, say, working in a consortium way, and whether it is feasible, not feasible at this point of time. It is a different view by different OEMs which will come into picture, or whether it is like a system supplier will have a different view onto this. But what is coming out is very, very important at this point of time is a continuous research and development is mandated in this technology. And I'm not saying you are able to use the technology which is well proven in other part of the world, which may be immediately suitable for India, but the efforts, time, and continuous working on use cases is a key for Indian CV point of view. So this is, I think, is going to be a first enabling step from a say OEM perspective, and that is what is important. Similarly, like a system suppliers, they have to put a lot of effort in a say like a sensors and a cost-effective sensors development for India. And whether India will afford like a long range radars, or whether India can afford like a high-end kind of a radar system, or whether we are able to use like a fusion system of say high-end cameras and a radar. Is it a way forward? These are the kind of questions where the efforts are required from a system suppliers, and they have to prepare a solution specific for India, specific for commercial vehicle industry. That is the second enabler which I personally feel. Third, I think important part is what should be our way forward, and there it is like there are 5 steps, which we broadly discuss about a no automation, or only driver assistance, or a partial automation, or where she say conditional automation, and the last part like a high automation and a full automation. There are like a 5-6 steps which are there, and India is poising towards first 2 steps. That means from a no automation kind of a situation towards like a driver assistance kind of feature. And if we are able to capture various use cases, as Mr. Singh also highlighted in one of the use case, and if you do a thorough homework on the algorithm part of that and artificial intelligence part of it, and making the sensors suitable for Indian operating conditions, Indian temperatures, and kind of environment, I think the journey will become a smoother. Journey is not like a short-term journey, and journey is going to be a long-term journey for this. But the OEMs, the system supplier have to invest their time, efforts, money for India-specific solutions. This is my view.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Yeah, Mr. Singh, quickly you want to respond, because then we'll move to Q&A. Yeah.
I'll just take a minute to just give a perspective from a fleet operator's point of view. There are 3 or 4 things that we have to look at if we want to seriously implement ADAS in India. See, the safety imperative is very much understood by everyone, right? Life is important. Accidents need to be reduced. Everything that we can do, we need to do. So there is no question about selling the concept as a whether it's required or not required. It is required. Where are we getting held up? One of the areas that when we did trials, we figured out the components and the key things like the cameras or whatever mountings are there, they are not designed as per Indian conditions. So this is one big hitch. There, each supply talks of TCO. Now let me tell you, when we buy a truck, that truck will last me 15 years. So the TCO is quite clearly in my mind. I know what is the kind of investment I'm making, what is the kind of return I will make. If we ask any of the system suppliers, you are going to charge me an X amount for this particular ADAS system. What is the life of the system? Most people will have no clear answer to that question. So there is one fear that we have is about not investment, it is about the longevity of that particular component and the system. How long will it really last, or will it really work flawlessly? Because please understand here, a single mistake in this scenario, if I have installed a forward collision warning system or an automated braking and the vehicle does not brake and hit somebody, the system supplier will be responsible. So they have to be 200% sure before they say that I'm giving you a forward collision warning or I'm giving you this automated braking system. Second point is about the false alarms. We have tried the system. Drivers simply put it on the side, and they had a reason. And I sat with them. We did trials. I understood their problem. Yes, false alarms irritates you like anything. So instead of solving the problem, you might end up adding to the problem. So these are two important things that the system supplier should take care of, and then we are good to go. We would be the first company, if WAPCO is willing, to do an in-depth analysis and an on-road testing with their systems on our trucks. We tried with Mobileye. Mobileye came, they could not do it. They said for every truck we have to calibrate the system differently, and then they just went back and they never came back. So we don't want people with 17-18 billion dollar valuation coming here and thinking that Indian market is just plug and play. It's not plug and play. You have to work alongside us, work with the Indian conditions, calibrate your systems, and then install and actually prove a concept. I'm not just via presentations, but on road. Thank you.
Thank you. I think fair enough. You have also talked about, you have made an offer literally saying that you would be willing to use the system. That's good to know. Rohit, why don't you pull out the result of the poll, and also if you want to start with the first 1-2 questions. Yeah, so I think it's very clear that while the regulation will come at some point in future, but I think the best option is a value-added option to customers before the regulation, and I think 87% vote in favor of that. Over to you, Rohit, with the first set of questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So Pawan, in the meantime, you can scan the Q&A section. Okay, I'll start off with the questions. So one of the questions that have come up in the Q&A section is that, while we have an emissions roadmap, okay, why, can a safety roadmap of India be drawn? Mrs. Rashmi, Mrs. Rashmi, that was coming to you anyway.
Yes, of course, roadmap helps everybody, not just the government, but the vehicle manufacturers, users, regulators, testing agencies. From that point of view, safety roadmap always has been a focused point, and all the regulations that we see today are an outcome of the roadmap that was drawn earlier. Now, the latest version or the next version of roadmap is under discussion, and today's topic is very much a part of that discussion, and that's also combined now with the Vision Zero direction set in by the government. So yes, there is a roadmap required by the government.
Okay, great. Next question for Mr. Ramanathan. So ADAS will necessitate driver training. How do you think this training setup should be developed?
Yeah, basically, like Mr. Singhi also talked about, and Mr. Aniruddha also talked about that. It requires, basically, these are all very user-friendly systems. These ADAS systems are. But before applicating that, there are a lot of trials and data needs to be collected, and tuning needs to be perfect to avoid false warnings and give you accurate warnings. So many of our systems, like we did in some of the OEMs present here, we did almost 1 million kilometers we have run in many of the vehicles before we release the OEM for this ADAS system introduction in the market. So I would put more stress on the validation and the release And because the system as such, it is very user friendly. It gives you alerts in different forms, visual or warning and other thing. And what driver has to do, and many of the cases, it will also, if the braking is integrated, then it will also automatically do the braking. So, but only when you are going for a very high-end systems with complete braking, or even if you are going at a 80 kilometers per hour speed and you want to completely stop the vehicle, then there are many other safety implications for the driver training and all. He has to wear a seat belt, the cabin has to be perfect, and safety. So those safety awareness are required. But for a simple warning system and alert system, I would put more stress on validation and release before the system with a proven product.
Great. So next question is from a gentleman by the name of Mr. Shyam Sundar Shriram. So he says that, you know, when we talk about ADAS, you know, technologies can go all the way from a, let's say, a, you know, ABS or a ESC to a, you know, advanced collision warning and so on and so forth. So this one is for Mr. Kaniyappan. So in the near future, let's say in the next 2-3 odd years, which technologies do you see getting implemented when it comes to the Indian CV market?
I strongly believe that India should go for electronic stability control as the first step, then followed by AEBS or ADAS.
Okay, great. And Mr. Kulkarni, do you agree with that statement? You're coming from the OEM perspective.
So, say it is a OEM to OEM. It is a different. You have your own your technology roadmap. You have your own product introduction roadmaps and everything. But when we talk about India as a broad, and when you talk about the commercial vehicle as in a very broader sense, and I'm not talking from any specific OEM point of view, but say immediately I think the safety perspective of the vehicle should improve, and there we have passive safety features and the active safety features, and some of the say warning which we are trying to provide in a level 0 kind of autonomy or a level 1 kind of autonomy. Those are very, very important going forward. And here, I think the OEMs or a system supplier should focus upon immediately in India. And my understanding is that if we are able to capture the good amount of use cases from a sensor point of view also, like a sensors has to be robust, or you are able to capture the various road conditions, or there is no roads, bumpy roads, potholes, ages of the roads are different. And if you are able to capture that, I think the journey will be faster in that direction, and every OEM will move ahead in those journey as far as the level 1 kind of a thing is concerned, in my understanding.
Sure. Okay. Next question is for Philip. So Philip, we have someone asking that, you know, in a real driving scenario. Okay, so sometimes it's not just that you know, you just put a brake and you avoided an accident. Sometimes it can be you know, swerving to avoid, or you know, light brake, or I mean, there can be n number of sort of scenarios. So in that sense, when it comes to ADAS development or ADAS, you know, technology, have those been incorporated into the algorithm? I mean, how much work has been done on such strategies, you know, when it comes to the algorithm or the system sort of avoiding these or mimicking real driver behavior, so to speak?
Yeah, as said, we have basically a huge time already with the system in the market. So we had experienced a significant amount of different use cases as well, different situations in the market. So the system definitely is capable to be adjusted to work on ACC, so continuous keeping the distance to the truck in the front. There is a braking installation of reducing just by 20 kilometers the speed. There is a possibility to go completely to stop. So we have a huge variation of use cases already implemented. in different legislation and different requirements in different markets. So it's a question now, what is the perfect installation for the Indian market and for which use cases we want to activate the system in the first step, and then going forward, what use cases will come on top. So this will be in this round or combination of legislation, of OEM as well, suppliers. They will have to make a decision on the roadmap and together with the fleets, make a decision what to implement when.
Sure, sure. And somebody has again, asked a very good question. I'm just going to go ahead with that one. Can Mr. Omkar Thakur asks, can ADAS technology be used to verify insurance claims or determine the culpability in events of loss? Would any one of you like to take that one? I open the floor, like if anybody. Mr. Ramanathan?
I can answer. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. There are some ADAS technologies, like we have the critical event recorders, like which actually it puts a camera in the front and it automatically records in case of an accident. Automatically, the 20 seconds before the impact and 20 seconds after the impact is the video is captured and it is automatically uploaded. So these videos play a very critical evidence of an accident, and so those technologies are available.
Sure, sure. And also one more thing, a lot of people have raised is that, when the applicability of ADAS when it comes to different segments. While passenger vehicle, two-wheeler, we can ignore for the time being because, we are focusing on a commercial vehicle. But when it comes to, let's say, the off-highway segment, be it construction equipment, agri, if what is the ADAS applicability when it comes to that? Would any one of you like to take that? Because I believe you are looking at off-highway as well when it comes to ADAS.
In the case of basically these technologies are meant to support the driver. It is a driver assistance technology. So
sure.
where the commercial vehicles or which are plying on the on-highway vehicles, you are traveling at a reasonably a decent speed or good speed, then the time to react by the driver is very short. So these technologies help the driver to compensate if he is inattentive. Well, in the case of off-highway or the vehicles which are plying on the off-highway, so the vehicle speeds are generally very less. So unless it is an autonomous tractor or autonomous agricultural tractors, now there are some applications like that where these ADAS technologies can be used. But otherwise, generally the off-highway vehicles travel at a very low speed. So these technologies have a different usage there.
Sure, sure.
So another, I can only add that the technology like hill start assist, hill start aid kind of a technology are also very relevant for this kind of a segment, which we are talking about right now, construction segment or a mining segment. And this becomes a part of like a level 1 kind of autonomy also, which is very important. And there has been a work which is happening also for this segment in the industry. So that segment, which is like a construction, mining, deep mining kind of something, that is not neglected. So the features are there, including say surround cameras or say blind spot detection, which is also there at a low speed. That becomes very, very important from that point of view. So here the side like a zones and the rear zones also become very, very important in these segments.
Sure.
Thanks, Mr. Kulkarni.
Okay, great. So Pawan, do you have any question that you would like to ask the panel group?
I think quick 2 questions were there. One is
sure.
Harish from Volvo Trucks is asking that Indian transporters seldom see safety as a point of concern in their operations. How do you bring the change in attitude? So I think I'll let anyone pick up that. But I think there was this one interesting question, Mr. Kulkarni, you may be able to answer, from Gopinath Chandrasekhar. He's asking that how much monetary benefit in percentage would a fleet get against additional investment if they have to do for new safety features?
Okay, well, you're talking about so my question slightly I'm asking to you, Mr. Pawan,
on TCO.
So it is on a TCO front. Okay.
So what is the benefit for the investment that I'm going to make for the ADAS system? What is the savings percentage that I would get?
As I was mentioning, like it has a different levels of say TCO benefit, and I'm talking purely from say digital validation which is done. Right now, the data from India is not published, and I think the OEMs also will not like to disclose at this point of time. But the digital validation shows that an initial like a platooning kind of a thing, highway semi-platooning, will lead to a TCO benefit of say 10 to 15%. When you have a highway long-term platooning, which will lead to almost like a 15 to 25%, and then it's like a full autonomy kind of running, that will fetch almost like a 35% kind of a TCO benefit we will get into the future at this point of time. India use cases will be slightly different because of diverse traffic and diverse use cases. So that's why the data is yet to be published from those markets at this point of time.
Sure. And anyone wants to add anything final last comment? Anyway, we are over time, but I think it was a fantastic discussion today on the ADAS systems, learning from the global market, and what are the use cases that we could apply. We talked about the TCO also. We talked about the use cases where it can be applied, and then the need for as a value added option before the regulation, and how a collaborative approach would really bring together all the relevant stakeholders. And we also had Mr. Singhi even say that he'll be the first to use the system here that's being supplied. So I think it's a very bright future that we're talking about in terms of the application of ADAS in Indian markets. We clearly understand that it's not a copy paste option. It has to be customized for our requirements very clearly here. And there's a lot more work that has been done. And we hope to only see further steps which will enhance the adoption at much more faster rate, and regulation definitely will catch up at that front. I would really like to thank all the panelists. You've been superb, and it's been like amazing learning experience, not just for the attendees, but for surely for me as well. That it was almost like a master class on ADAS with a brilliant 7 panelists from across the globe. So thank you so much. Over to you, Rohit.
Thanks, Pawan. So I want to thank everybody for joining today's live session on ADAS. I hope you enjoyed this session and found it useful. Firstly, I would like to thank our speaker group for taking out the time for the busy schedule for this. I really appreciate all of your support. And secondly, I would like to thank a wonderful audience. We received well over 100 questions and almost 1,000 registrations for this session. So thank you so much for your support. And lastly, I wanted to take this time to especially thank our partner, WAPCO India Limited, once again, and the entire ZF WAPCO team for supporting this session. So thank you for joining us once again, and we will see you next time for our upcoming session on electric fleets, which is taking place on 12th of May at 3 p.m. Do join us for that. In the meantime, here is a goodbye from all of us.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Stay safe.